Today, I want to talk about regret. Regret is such a powerful word, with an equally powerful meaning. According to the dictionary, the word regret means a feeling of sadness, repentance, or disappointment over something that has happened or been done, especially a loss or missed opportunity. I believe that everybody feels some form of regret in their lifetime, and many of us hold on to that regret harder or longer than others. I've had my fair share of regrets, and I will go over some of those regrets in a bit more detail later on. But first, I'd like to talk about why I believe that regret, as powerful as it may be, should be clear of one's mind. Essentially, to regret something is to wish you had done something different, and it's so easy to say that, right? I wish I would have spent more time in Hawaii. I wish I could have seen Michael Jordan play live. I wish I would have invested my money in Google when it first launched. To say I wish I would have or could have is so incredibly easy. But how easy is it to let go of those regrets? How easy is it to move on from what our minds chalk up as past mistakes? The short answer to those questions is this: it's not easy. If there is a silver lining to regret, it's that it will never apply to something that has not yet happened. In other words, you cannot regret something that could happen in the future. We don't know what the future holds. We can guess or predict that something may come to pass, but we don't know for absolute certain what will happen. I believe this is what makes regret something that can be managed with a bit more ease. If something is in the past, it cannot be changed. Unless a time travel device has been invented by mankind and we don't yet know about it, then there is no going back in time. We cannot change the events of the past, but what can we do? What we can do is we can learn from those events of the past. We can take all the positives and negatives, dissect each individual component, and make a plan. That plan can be anything you wish. Do you wish to learn from a past mistake and never make that mistake again? Do you wish to improve upon a specific performance? Do you wish to have changed course to take your life someplace else? In some cases, our regrets cannot be tempered in the future, but perhaps can be swayed in some way. It may be possible for an athlete who consistently finishes last in a race to work towards climbing that ladder and eventually placing first. It may be possible for that single person who can never seem to find love to finally strike gold and find the love of their life. But maybe it's not possible for that military-minded individual to join the Air Force anymore after waiting far too long to commit. Or maybe it's too late for the sweet old lady to have kids of her own one day. But that doesn't mean that there aren't alternative changes that can be made to their futures so they can have a taste of what they had regret. Maybe the military-minded individual becomes a pilot and is satisfied with that feeling of being above the clouds. Maybe the sweet old lady becomes a nanny and gets that same satisfaction from the hug of a little toddler as she would have her own kids. When I was a young adult, I made the first of my most regrettable decisions. I got involved with an older woman who was in a relationship at the time. I was blinded by lust and believed that it was love. As a young Catholic man, this was a terrible, terrible mistake. I had become so involved with this woman that I firmly believed that I was doing the right thing and that my family, who unequivocally opposed my decision, would eventually see things my way. I had convinced myself that I was right and that this was a quote-unquote good relationship. I have 7 older sisters who consistently and vehemently reminded me that what I was doing was a mistake, that it was wrong, unethical, disgusting, vile. The list goes on. At the time, I would hear what they were saying, but I didn't listen. I would say things to them that I wish I had never spoken. But one day came that moment where I truly realized the graveness of my mistakes and the way that I treated my sisters. While it's easy for me to say that I regret being with that woman, and I regret the things that I said to my sisters, I can honestly say that I wouldn't change what had happened. My relationship with my sisters grew stronger after that, and I developed more love and admiration for them than I ever thought possible. They didn't do what they did because they were trying to hurt me. They were trying to save me and my soul from making a monumental mistake. Not only did they save me from that mistake, but they taught me a valuable life lesson that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. And they taught me how to truly love and respect women, the way that they deserve to be loved and respected. I don't know if my sisters will ever truly understand just how grateful I am for all of that and how much I love them for it. I'm in my mid-30s now, so the aforementioned story seems like a lifetime ago. I'll take you back to a story that's a little more recent and more fresh in my mind. My father, who I essentially lived with my entire life, passed away on June 1st of 2020. About a week or so before he passed, he was still at home, spending time with me and two of my sisters, whom also lived at home with him. At the time, we knew that my father was ill and that his time was limited. He had recently been diagnosed with cholangiocarcinoma, also known as bile duct cancer. A doctor we had spoken to had estimated that he would live anywhere from 9 months to 3 to 5 years, depending on the severity of the cancer and whether or not it spread beyond the bile duct. With this knowledge in mind, I wanted to make it a point to spend more time with my father. While I would occasionally watch a movie or series with him, or even play a card game or two, I didn't necessarily spend a whole lot of time just talking with him prior to his diagnosis. But after learning about his condition, him and I spent many nights with the TV off, just chatting away. I learned things about him that I never knew before. He shared stories of his parents and siblings that had me bursting in laughter and tears. It was beautiful. While I don't remember the exact date, there was a night when my father and I decided to watch a movie called The Song of Bernadette. About halfway through the film, we had paused the movie and began talking again about many things. My dad had actually spoken of some things that he regret, and I assured him that all the things that he had done had led him to the point in which he was at. He was the father to 8 children and a grandfather to 21, who all loved him more than words could ever explain, and he was the best father that I could have ever asked for. After we spent time talking with each other, I had decided that it was time for bed. We decided that we would finish the movie another day, but instead, for that night, my father wanted to watch videos with me of the story behind Our Lady of Guadalupe, his personal favorite. I told my father, "No, I will watch it with you tomorrow night." The next day, my father was taken to the hospital after experiencing extreme discomfort. It would be the last time he spent at home, as he passed away at the hospital just a few short days later. The cancer had spread further than any of us knew. It brings me to tears when I think about the last night I spent with him. Why didn't I just watch the videos? I didn't have to go to sleep. I could have stayed up longer and spent more time with my father. But as horrible as it may sound, I will say again that I wouldn't have changed a thing about what happened. My sisters and I made the decision for him to go to the hospital the next day. We could have excused his discomfort and allowed him to stay at home. It was his wish to die peacefully at home, surrounded by his family. But we had determined that we would send him to the hospital. At the time, we believed that he would need another operation to essentially open up his bile duct to allow fluids to pass more freely. We thought he would have the operation, spend a few days at the hospital to heal, and then return home. We hadn't realized the nature of his cancer and just how bad it was until he got there. Once at the hospital, he was given the proper treatment before eventually being transferred to hospice care, where he was given extraordinarily great treatment and care by the nurses. I was with one of my sisters, each of us on either side of my father, holding his hand as he passed away. It was the most difficult thing I've ever experienced in my life, but it was peaceful. Had he stayed at home when he felt that discomfort, there's no saying what would have happened. I choose to believe the reality of what happened instead of believing in any sort of what-ifs. I lived with my father for over 30 years and had the most remarkable of memories and moments. Why bother reflecting on one missed opportunity when we shared a lifetime of incredible moments together? I choose to focus on those beautiful moments rather than dwell on just one missed opportunity. This brings me back to why regret should be clear of one's mind. As someone who has suffered from mental illness for quite some time, it's easy for me to understand just how powerful the mind is. Our minds are the driving force behind regret. Without the ability to think, regret wouldn't be a problem, right? and thinking is something that every person in the world has time to do. But when we regret something, what good does it do for our minds? How often does regret give us peace of mind? I'd be willing to wager that it doesn't. Regret clouds our minds with all of the what-ifs and the would-have, could-have, should-have scenarios. It makes us reflect on things that cannot be changed. The best antidote, in my opinion, for the fight against regret is to look in the opposite direction. You are looking in the past when you look to regret, right? Then it's time to start looking to the future instead. What can I do different? How can I learn from my mistakes? What would my lost loved ones want me to do? Start by changing your mental state of mind and focus on what's in front of you, not behind you. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want you to ever forget the path that led you to this point in your life. There are many valuable life lessons to be learned, and all the things that have happened in the past have made you who you are today. With that being said, if you're not happy with the person you are today because of your past, for whatever reason that may be, then what good will dwelling on the past do? Take me, for example. I'm 5'8" and I weigh almost 300 pounds. I used to be in very good shape back in high school and was under 230 pounds as recently as just a few short years ago. It's so easy for me to look back at my 230 pound self and say, dang, I wish I would have kept working out and gotten in really good shape. But is uttering that statement going to get me any closer to my 230 pound self? No, it's not. The only thing I can do now is work hard towards that goal if I truly wish to achieve it. It may be difficult, but it's up to me. Regretting the decisions to not work out, to eat unhealthy foods, to essentially sit home on my butt all day long, that doesn't do me any favors. Thinking about those mistakes isn't going to help me burn any calories. I have to pick and choose which parts of those mistakes and missed opportunities I wish to use as ammunition for the gunfight that I'll participate in the future when I make it a priority to lose weight again. I truly believe that a person can change their mind so it no longer looks at regret as this negative memory, a dark cloud that can hover over us at every waking moment. I believe that the mind can be mended and evolved to think of regret in a completely different way. I said before that regret cannot apply to the future. But what if we can develop our minds to think of regret as a tool for a potential future benefit, and not as a dark, hovering cloud of the past? We can't change the past, but we can shape the future for ourselves. We have so many tools at our disposal. Some of those tools may be gathering dust. Heck, my yoga mat hasn't seen the light of day in quite some time. But they're there, waiting to be used once again. It's up to us to pick up those tools and utilize them to the best of our ability. To create a better future for ourselves, we are not so focused on what could have been, but what will be. I'm an example of the change in which I speak of, and I believe that you can join me in being this example. I wish you all the best in whatever may come. Take care, and God bless.